coming out of a community meeting in Fort Myers tonight. An interfaith group talked to the police chief and other leaders about unsolved murder cases and a lack of trust. The meeting is one of many that followed a scathing review of the police department, but tonight was different. The Night Beat's Kasey Kushner live in Fort Myers now. Kasey, the police chief made commitments to the community tonight.
Yes, the big topic of tonight's meeting was about the number of unsolved homicides. Church members asked Chief Diggs to commit to specific solutions and to start rebuilding a better relationship with the community. Members of the Lee Interfaith Empowerment held a meeting tonight asking Chief Diggs about the city's unsolved homicide numbers. The leaders of each church say for the past 2 years they've done their own research and plan to speak with Chief Diggs and other city leaders long before the free report came out. Tonight they got answers.
We received yeses on all of those asks that we made, which were based off of our own research and then of course off of the recommendations of the free report. So I think it's not just a victory for this interfaith justice group. This is a victory for the entire community.
Some of the specific solutions Chief Diggs committed to is assigning cold case detectives for past cases, finding safer locations for witnesses to communicate with detectives, and reestablishing a police substation in Dunbar.
The free report did recommend for a substation in the Dunbar area, and we're working as fast as we can to make sure we get one down there.
Chief Diggs says so far there's been a 33% decrease in homicides, and in order to lower that number even more, he needs the community's support.
Just have the community support the free report like I'm going to support it, embrace the free report like I'm trying to embrace it, and work with us as we try to accomplish those 32 recommendations.
At Monday's council, they are supposed to be discussing buying more land at Cortez near 41 for another substation. There is a second public meeting tomorrow night at Dunbar High School. Live on the Night Beat, Kasey Kushner, Wink News Now.
A big promise tonight from the Fort Myers police chief. Good evening, I'm Peter Bush.
And I'm Lisa Spooner. Chief Derek Diggs committed to building a substation in the heart of Dunbar, where the city has had a violent crime problem for years.
NBC2's Graham Hunter was there as religious leaders pressured the chief to make the promise.
Chief Diggs met with those religious leaders tonight at St. Columkill Church, where he promised that his department would do a better job of solving murders and that a bigger presence in Dunbar was a key to making that happen.
I just burst out clapping my hands.
Trish Smith lives in Dunbar. She listened in as Chief Derek Diggs promised he would look for better training for officers in Fort Myers.
We have to do our part as citizens in the Dunbar area.
That's something Chief Diggs called for as well.
It's sad that people don't talk.
Tonight, Diggs also committed to a true substation in Dunbar. NBC2 reported this week the department was looking for office space in the community, but their current plans would not qualify as a substation.
We've been working on it for quite some time. I really can't give you a timeline yet because it's a work in process, but we're working as fast as we can to get that station up and running.
State Attorney Stephen Russell was at tonight's meeting. He promised to make his agency available to fulfill another recommendation of a recent independent audit that his office teach officers how to better handle murder investigations.
That joint training is going to happen with our investigators and others.
NBC2 also pressed Chief Diggs on a claim his department made last week. Can they prove they have prevented 6 mass shootings since he took over last summer?
Absolutely. Good police work.
Was it
good police
collecting
work?
Guns or
good police work. Okay.
Well, a spokesman for the department at tonight's meeting told me that Chief Diggs does have the authority to put a substation in Dunbar as long as he can find the money for it in his budget. He would not need approval from City Council to put a substation there. We're reporting live in Fort Myers. Graham Hunter, NBC2.
I'm a roofer by birth. I remain a roofer by choice. My father taught me the right way is the only way.
Montgomery Winslow Roofing has been the premier roofing company since 1949, everywhere between Port Charlotte and Marco Island. The Florida Roofer.
Event at the church behind me, and tonight we heard from one mother who expressed how difficult it is living knowing that her son's killers are still walking free.
So I was like, you better come home, because
still curfew because you're 18. But he's like, no, Mom, promise if I come home, you know, don't be mad. So I made the promise that I wouldn't be mad at him. And those were the last words that me and my son had.
This mother lost her only son, and his killer is still on the loose. She shared her story with hundreds who gathered Tuesday evening calling for unity and justice. The Lee Interfaith Empowerment Organization hosted this event at the St. Columkille Catholic Church in Fort Myers, asking the Fort Myers Police Department and State Attorney's Office to help resolve more than 100 unsolved homicide cases.
We ask members of our congregations a simple question every year: what keeps you up at night? What is it you worry about in terms of our community? And we do listening events in all of our congregations.
An independent audit of the Fort Myers Police Department highlighted 32 critical issues that needed to be addressed, including corruption in a high number of unsolved cases. Police Chief Diggs tells me he's met with the faith-based organization twice already to discuss solutions plaguing the department.
No matter what people's feelings are about the police department, we have to have positive relationship with the community that we serve. And this group has indicated that they're going to support the efforts of the Fort Myers Police Department to help build those positive relationships.
Diggs received a standing ovation at the event after agreeing to a number of recommendations from Life to improve community relations. State Attorney Stephen Russell, who committed to providing more training to prosecutors and investigators, also received a standing O. The organization's vice president, Pastor Dr. William Glover, tells me he is confident city leaders will work together to build trust and solve more cases.
If murderers are not arrested and prosecuted, then that means they're still on the street. That puts everybody else at risk.
Now, last year, the Fort Myers Police Department investigated 16 homicide cases, but they were only able to make 5 arrests, leaving nearly 63% of those cases unsolved. But tonight, Chief Diggs tells me he plans on aggressively attacking those cases. Live in Fort Myers, Deborah Souverain, Fox 4, in your corner.
We're going to follow those recommendations. That's the roadmap. That's the next step.
A police department under siege. Tonight, the Fort Myers police chief tells NBC2 he needs the feds to step in. Good evening, I'm Kelly Burns.
And I'm Peter Bush. Chief Derek Diggs wants the U.S. Justice Department to help clean up the mess. Tonight, NBC2's Levi Ismail spoke with the chief about the report that could dramatically change the department.
Now, in our 15-minute interview with Chief Diggs, he was very careful, trying to make sure that anything involving the Department of Justice was done by the books. He did, however, open up about the free report, and he says that everything in that report and those recommendations, he wants to make sure they're implemented here. He's a man of few words, but he's candid.
God,
yeah, come on, bring it on down. I'll say it. I mean, you have the free report. Was that as eye-opening as you expected it to be based off of some of the stuff that was said in there?
Well, I don't know if it's eye-opening or not. You know, the free report is about a needs assessment. It's similar to our audit. You know, it ain't gonna be all positive, and so you know you're gonna have bad things in it.
There are plenty of different accusations made in the actual report. Accusations like officers feeding information to known drug dealers and cliques forming in the department, creating a divide.
I've read it, I've digested it, but I'm moving forward. I don't have the time, I don't have the patience to sit back and start wondering why.
Other complaints involve officers cheating on exams to receive promotions into departments like the homicide unit, possibly putting any number of high-profile cases in jeopardy. How do you address some of those issues where people say the integrity of the officers at Fort Myers Police Department is just not where it needs to be?
You follow the recommendations. Once again, I'm embracing that report.
The free report listed 32 recommendations moving forward. Many Chief Diggs says he's already implemented. Do you feel that the city is safer because of some of these actions that you've made?
Well, I don't, it's not feel, I know, okay? If you ask the people out there, they'll tell you.
Many are crediting Chief Diggs with cleaning up gang activity after the arrest of over 20 alleged Lake Boys gang members. For Diggs, it's just one component of keeping Fort Myers safe.
So we're doing the right things. We know the city is safer. We're starting to build relationships.
I did ask Chief Diggs about the 5 officers that were placed on leave right as soon as the free report was released. He says that he is not going to answer those questions directly, but he did mention that they are going to follow all of the recommendations by this independent group and some of those recommendations that were made in that report. Now, this group was funded, or this group was paid for by the city of Fort Myers, and that was where the report actually came from. Reporting live in Fort Myers, Levi Ismail, NBC2.
On the night beat, is the Fort Myers Police Department making the grade? We told you earlier about a scathing audit revealing several shortcomings at FMPD. Wink News wanted to know, what do you think? Night Beat's Kasey talked to several community members.
The number of unsolved crimes is staggering, from detectives failing to document investigations consistently.
I do have some concerns, and I've never said that we didn't have challenges. We got challenges.
Some of the more high-profile cases are ZombieCon and the Club Blue shooting. There were potentially hundreds of witnesses, and yet no one is charged in those killings. Wink News wanted to know what the community thinks, and they stand behind their officers. Tanya Kola is the coordinator of Dunbar Neighborhood Watch. She's also planning a community vigil tomorrow night.
I think sometimes we read too much into certain things, and I think that we should give them an opportunity and a chance, because I know that they work really hard to make sure that we're safe in this community.
Business leaders say they believe Southwest Florida is relatively safe compared to other areas.
So crime rates here are going to be lower than a lot of the areas, and the quality of life is better. People move here for water, warmth, and way of life.
Still, there is clearly a need for improvement. Kasey Kushner, Wink News Now.
Research shows crime rates can directly impact property values. One study indicates that a 10% reduction in homicides would lead to an increase in home values the following year. Community members say they know change takes time, but they hope after this audit, the Fort Myers Police Department can clean house quickly and keep everybody safe.
Now, alarming allegations against some Fort Myers police officers. A new independent report out today claims they leaked search warrant information to drug dealers, and those officers received promotions. This is just one finding from the review of that department. Wink News reporter Michelle Kingston was there when the group revealed its findings today. She's live now with more on what's next. Michelle.
Well, they're calling for a lot of changes within the department. They're asking for additional staffing, more training, even reevaluating supervisors. A lack of officers to solve crimes and preferential treatment within the department were two main issues brought out in an investigation within the Fort Myers Police Department.
That cannot happen. That is something that needs to be addressed one way or the other.
The city paid the Free Group $150,000 to investigate and found there's a culture of failure and defeatism, integrity issues, and cliques that divide the officers.
The great majority, if not almost every single person we interviewed, said there was a cliquish system within the department. You either were in or you were out.
The Free Group interviewed 200 officers anonymously, detailing policies not being followed, evidence getting backlogged, murderers being allowed to walk the streets because cases go cold. The report mentions allegations that some officers even leaked information to drug dealers about search warrants, and those officers who may have leaked information were promoted. The company also interviewed some members of the public who say they want more police visibility on the streets, which is one of the program's new Police Chief Derek Diggs has already implemented: community engagement.
We have improved the safety of our citizens in our neighborhoods, and we will continue to do so.
Now, Chief Diggs says he's also taken a lot of weapons off of the streets since he started with the department. He also says he's going to be putting his officers through a lot of new training this year. Live in Fort Myers, Michelle Kingston, Wink News Now.